In the bustling heart of New York, 1955, Mindy Schloss was born into a world of endless possibilities. As a young girl, she marveled at the towering skyscrapers and the diverse tapestry of life around her. Mindy was a dreamer, her eyes always glistening with the promise of tomorrow. As she grew, so did her ambitions. Mindy was never one to shy away from a challenge, her heart set on making a difference in the world. At 25, a pivotal moment came. She decided to leave the familiar streets of New York for the untamed wilderness of Alaska. It was a bold move, fueled by her desire to explore the unknown and her passion for helping others. Alaska, with its rugged landscapes and remote communities, presented a stark contrast to her urban upbringing, but Mindy embraced it with open arms. She enrolled in the local medical university, determined to forge a new path in the field of psychiatry. The harsh climate and isolated communities were challenging, yet Mindy found beauty in the simplicity and resilience of life in Alaska. Her days were filled with studies and adapting to a new way of life, far removed from the comforts of New York. She immersed herself in the community, learning from the local traditions and forming connections that would deeply influence her perspective on life and her approach to psychiatry. Upon graduation, Mindy's dedication to mental health care led her to a nursing position at the Fairbanks Hospital. It was more than a job, it was a calling. She was now a beacon of hope for those struggling in the remote corners of Alaska, often inaccessible by conventional means. Mindy's journey from the bustling streets of New York to the serene wilderness of Alaska was not just a change of scenery. It was a transformation of spirit, a testament to her unwavering commitment to make a difference in the world, one patient at a time. In this vast, wild land, Mindy found her purpose. She embraced her new home with the same fervor and passion that she had as a young girl gazing at the New York skyline. Alaska was no longer just a place. It had become a part of her, a chapter in her story that was only just beginning. Mindy's days in Alaska turned into a profound adventure, marked by her tireless service in remote corners of this rugged land. The vast expanse of wilderness that stretched out before her was both daunting and exhilarating. As a nurse specializing in psychiatry, she found her calling not just within the confines of the Fairbanks Hospital, but in the far-flung areas where medical help was a rare luxury. Her job took her beyond the conventional boundaries, reaching people who lived in isolation, far from the nearest medical facility. She traveled across the harsh Alaskan terrain, sometimes by boat when the rivers were the only pathways, other times by small planes when the distances were too great. Each journey was a testament to her commitment, each patient a reminder of why she chose this path. These expeditions were not just about providing medical care. They were a journey into the lives of people who were often forgotten by the world. She met families who braved the unforgiving nature of Alaska, communities that thrived in harmony with the land, and individuals who embodied the resilience of the human spirit. Mindy's work was challenging, both physically and emotionally. The remote areas of Alaska presented unique health issues, compounded by the lack of access to regular health care. But for Mindy, each challenge was an opportunity to learn and to give. She treated every patient with the same care and compassion, regardless of where they were or their circumstances. Living nearly 600 kilometers away from the hospital in Anchorage, Mindy's routine involved long commutes by plane, her weeks spent in temporary accommodation, only returning home on weekends. This lifestyle was demanding, yet she found joy in it. Every flight back to Anchorage was a journey back to her second home, a place where she had carved out a life of purpose. In these remote expeditions, Mindy not only delivered health care, but also hope. She brought smiles to faces that had forgotten laughter, comfort to those in pain, and a sense of connection to those who were distant. Her work was more than a profession. It was a passion that fueled her, an unspoken promise to those she served. As the years passed, Mindy's bond with Alaska deepened. The wilderness that once seemed daunting now felt like a close friend. She had not only adapted to this new world, but had become an integral part of it, her life intricately woven into the fabric of the Alaskan wilderness. Through her service, Mindy Schloss became a symbol of unwavering dedication, her story a testament to the power of compassion and resilience in the face of adversity. August 2007 marked a pivotal turn in Mindy Schloss's life, one that would ripple through the hearts of those who knew her. It was a time when the endless daylight of the Alaskan summer began to yield to the encroaching dusk of autumn. Mindy, then 52, had returned to her Anchorage home for a weekend, a brief respite before returning to her duties at the Fairbanks Hospital. Anchorage, a city of contrasts where the bustle of urban life met the tranquility of nature, had always been a place of solace for Mindy. Her home there was her sanctuary, a place where she could recharge before plunging back into her demanding but fulfilling work. However, that weekend, something was amiss. Mindy's presence, usually a beacon of warmth and light, was eerily absent. Calls from her close friend, Jerry, remained unanswered, a silence that was uncharacteristic of Mindy. Jerry, accustomed to Mindy's meticulous nature, found this lack of communication unsettling. At first, Jerry attributed Mindy's silence to the possibility of an unplanned trip or a busy schedule. But as hours turned into a day with no word from Mindy, worry began to creep in. It was unlike Mindy to leave without notice, let alone be unreachable for such an extended period. Concern morphed into alarm when another mutual friend confirmed he too hadn't heard from Mindy. The absence of any message or indication of her whereabouts was out of character for the ever-responsible and communicative Mindy. Jerry's mind raced with scenarios, each more worrying than the last. By the time Monday arrived, and Mindy failed to show up for work at the hospital, a glaring deviation from her impeccable track record, the alarm bells were ringing loudly. Mindy's unexplained absence was now a gaping hole, her usually vibrant presence sorely missed by colleagues and patients alike. Jerry, driven by a mix of concern and fear, took the decision to alert the authorities. It was a step laden with gravity, marking the shift from personal worry to public concern. The police, upon hearing of Mindy's disciplined nature and her sudden, uncharacteristic disappearance, shared Jerry's apprehension. The missing person report filed at the police station was the first official acknowledgement of a mystery that was beginning to unfold. It was the beginning of a search that would peel back the layers of a seemingly normal weekend, revealing the shadows that lurked beneath. As the sun set on that day, the city of Anchorage, with its scenic beauty and serene landscapes, held within it a growing sense of unease. The disappearance of Mindy Schloss, a woman who had dedicated her life to serving others, was a storm that no one saw coming. The disappearance of Mindy Schloss cast a shadow over Anchorage, a community unaccustomed to mysteries of such a disturbing nature. The police, having initiated a missing person investigation, approached Mindy's home with a sense of foreboding, the unknowns of the case looming large. As they entered the house, a sense of normalcy paradoxically deepened the mystery. The home was orderly, devoid of any signs of struggle or forced entry. Everything appeared as it should, yet the owner of this well-kept abode was nowhere to be found. It was as if Mindy had simply vanished into thin air. Jerry, who had accessed the house earlier using a spare key, recounted her observations. She mentioned the peculiar looseness of the doorknob, an anomaly she had rectified with a screwdriver, but had thought little of it at the time. This minor detail, now shared with the detectives, added another piece to the increasingly complex puzzle. The absence of any visible signs of abduction or violence within the house led the investigators to consider various scenarios. Could Mindy have left of her own accord? The idea seemed incongruous with her responsible nature and a life she had built in Anchorage. Yet, in the absence of evidence to the contrary, every possibility had to be considered. As the investigation delved deeper, the detectives learned of Mindy's routine and habits, her close relationship with her friends, and her dedication to her work. They spoke with neighbors, friends, and colleagues, piecing together the fabric of her life in search of clues. The mystery deepened with the revelation that Mindy's car was missing. This detail was puzzling, as Mindy was known to use taxis for her trips to the airport, reserving her car for errands around the city. The absence of her vehicle suggested that she might have left the house voluntarily, but this theory was at odds with her unannounced disappearance and lack of communication. Adding to the enigma, Mindy's prescription medication was found untouched at her home. Given their value and demand, a burglar would likely have taken them, yet they remained. This discovery diminished the likelihood of a robbery gone wrong, steering the investigation towards more sinister possibilities. With each new discovery, the case twisted into new directions, leaving more questions than answers. The police considered the possibility of an accident or a natural disaster, given Alaska's vast and treacherous wilderness. Yet without concrete leads, these remained mere speculations. In the search for Mindy, the home she cherished and the life she led were dissected and examined. Each room, each belonging, each memory was scrutinized for clues. But the silence of the house offered no answers, only the echoing question: what happened to Mindy Schloss? As days turned into weeks, the mystery of Mindy Schloss's disappearance continued to haunt Anchorage. The police, methodical in their approach, began to unravel a thread that would eventually lead them into the heart of darkness. The first significant breakthrough came in an unexpected form. Mindy's bank records revealed a transaction that raised more questions than answers. Early on a Sunday morning, following her disappearance, an ATM withdrawal was made from Mindy's account. The sum was $500, the maximum daily limit. The police swiftly obtained the ATM's surveillance footage, hoping for a glimpse of Mindy. Instead, they were confronted with a chilling sight. The person withdrawing the money was not Mindy, but an unidentified man. His face was obscured by a bandana, a deliberate act to evade identification. He only lowered it when out of the camera's view, a cunning move to avoid leaving any trace of his identity. This footage was a pivot in the case. It shifted the narrative from a possible voluntary disappearance to something more sinister. The police now had a tangible lead, albeit a frustratingly vague one. The man at the ATM was a mystery, a ghost in the machine of their investigation. The detectives delved into this new lead with renewed vigor. They canvassed the area around the ATM, searching for witnesses or any further evidence. Every available resource was directed towards identifying the man who had accessed Mindy's account. Meanwhile, Jerry and Mindy's other colleagues, driven by concern and loyalty, initiated their own search efforts. They combed the areas Mindy frequented, the trails she hiked, and the parks she loved. Flyers bearing her image fluttered across the city, each a silent plea for her return. The police, analyzing the ATM transaction, considered the possibility of a kidnapping with ransom demands doomed to follow. But the silence was deafening. No calls, no messages, nothing. The use of Mindy's bank card was a single, isolated act, further shrouding the case in mystery. As the investigation continued, the police pieced together a timeline of Mindy's last known movements. The inquiry led them back to her home, where they conducted a more thorough search. They were looking for any clue, however small, that could point them towards Mindy or towards the person who might have taken her. The case of Mindy Schloss was evolving from a local news story to a haunting enigma that captured the attention of the wider public. People followed the developments with a mix of fascination and horror, the story of the missing nurse resonating in the collective consciousness of the community. Amidst the theories and speculations, one fact remained clear. Mindy had vanished, and someone had used her bank card. The question of whether these two events were connected loomed large over the investigation. The search for answers continued. The police and Mindy's loved ones united in their resolve to uncover the truth. In the heart of Anchorage, as autumn whispered its arrival, the investigation into Mindy Schloss's disappearance took a turn. The discovery of the ATM withdrawal had ignited a new trail, leading detectives down a path fraught with uncertainty. Amidst the flurry of activity, a new character entered the stage of this unfolding drama. His name was Josh Wayne, a 27-year-old resident of Anchorage, whose past was as murky as the waters of the Alaskan rivers. Josh lived near Mindy's home, a detail that piqued the interest of the investigators. Josh's background painted a picture of a troubled individual. 7 years prior, he had faced a murder charge but was acquitted by a jury. However, his brush with the law didn't end there. He was subsequently convicted for tampering with evidence and had served a partial sentence before his early release. The investigators, piecing together the puzzle, learned that Josh was known to travel primarily by bicycle, an intriguing detail considering the anonymous man at the ATM was also reported to have used a bicycle. This coincidence was too significant to ignore, propelling Josh to the forefront of the investigation. As they delved deeper into his profile, the police uncovered more about Josh's recent activities. He was unemployed, with no apparent source of income, yet he seemed to sustain a modest lifestyle. This discrepancy raised questions about how he was managing his finances. The police also discovered that Josh had been seen near Mindy's home around the time of her disappearance. Witnesses recalled seeing a man fitting his description lurking in the area, an observation that added weight to the growing suspicions against him. The focus of the investigation shifted, with Josh now under intense scrutiny. The detectives worked tirelessly, gathering information, seeking out witnesses, and piecing together his movements in the days surrounding Mindy's disappearance. Meanwhile, the community's concern for Mindy transformed into a palpable fear. The thought that someone among them could be responsible for her disappearance was unsettling. Josh, once just another face in the neighborhood, was now a source of fear and suspicion. The police, determined to unravel the truth, conducted a thorough search of Josh's residence. They hoped to find any evidence linking him to Mindy or to the ATM withdrawal. Every corner of his home was scrutinized, each belonging a potential clue to a puzzle that seemed to grow more complex by the day. As the days passed, the urgency to find Mindy intensified. The police, armed with their new lead, intensified their efforts. The community rallied, their hope for Mindy's safe return undiminished by the growing fear and uncertainty. The case of Mindy Schloss, which had begun as a baffling disappearance, was now a complex web of clues, suspects, and theories. Amidst this chaos, one question remained at the center of everyone's mind. What happened to Mindy, and could Josh Wayne hold the key to unlocking this mystery? The days in Anchorage grew shorter and colder as the investigation into Mindy Schloss's disappearance entered a new phase. With Josh Wayne emerging as a person of interest, the police intensified their efforts to untangle the web of mystery surrounding her vanishing. Investigators, armed with the knowledge of Josh's criminal past and his proximity to Mindy's residence, meticulously traced his recent activities. The puzzle pieces began to coalesce, forming a disturbing picture. The focus turned to a critical piece of evidence, the surveillance footage of the ATM withdrawal. The figure, shrouded in anonymity, was now potentially linked to Josh. The detectives revisited the footage, analyzing every movement, every shadow. They reached out to experts in digital enhancement, hoping to glean more details from the grainy images. The bandana-covered face of the suspect at the ATM became a symbol of the elusive nature of the case. Parallel to the investigation, Mindy's car, which had been missing since her disappearance, turned into a crucial element of the search. Its absence was a tangible void, a missing link in the chain of events. Theories abounded. Had Mindy left of her own volition, or had someone taken her car after harming her? The breakthrough came unexpectedly. An attentive local truck driver, familiar with Mindy's case through the media coverage, reported seeing her car parked near the airport. This new information propelled the investigation forward with renewed urgency. Detectives rushed to the location, hoping the vehicle would yield new clues. The car, abandoned and silent, was a somber reminder of Mindy's absence. Forensic teams swarmed the vehicle, searching for fingerprints, DNA, anything that could connect Josh to the car or provide insight into Mindy's fate. In a meticulous examination, the forensic team uncovered partial prints and traces of DNA inside the car. These samples were rushed to the lab, with the hope that they would match known records in the criminal database. The community of Anchorage waited with bated breath, hoping for a breakthrough. Back at the police station, detectives scrutinized Josh's recent whereabouts, cross-referencing them with the locations of the ATM and the airport. The circumstantial evidence was compelling, but they needed concrete proof, something that irrefutably linked Josh to the crime. As the investigation deepened, the character of Josh Wayne came under closer scrutiny. Neighbors and acquaintances were interviewed, painting a picture of a man who was often seen but rarely known, a shadowy figure on the fringes of the community. Meanwhile, the news of the discovery of Mindy's car rippled through Anchorage. The public, already gripped by the story, followed each development with a mix of hope and dread. Mindy's friends and colleagues clung to the hope that she would be found alive, even as the days passed and the autumn chill deepened. The case of Mindy Schloss, which had begun with her mysterious disappearance, was now a complex investigation, weaving through the streets of Anchorage and into the darker corners of its community. Each new discovery, each piece of evidence, brought the police closer to the truth, tightening the net around a suspect who, up to that point, had remained in the shadows. As the Alaskan autumn painted the landscape in hues of gold and crimson, the investigation into Mindy Schloss's disappearance reached a critical juncture. The discovery of her car near the airport had injected new vigor into the search, and the focus on Josh Wayne intensified. The painstaking analysis of the forensic evidence from Mindy's car yielded its first fruits. The partial fingerprints and DNA traces found inside the vehicle were processed, and the results sent ripples of shock through the Anchorage Police Department. The DNA matched Josh Wayne's, placing him at the very heart of the mystery. This revelation was a turning point. What had started as a circumstantial link was now supported by concrete scientific evidence. Josh, once a peripheral figure in Mindy's life, had become the central suspect in her disappearance. The police, bolstered by this breakthrough, widened their net. They revisited Josh's residence, searching for any additional evidence that could further link him to Mindy. Every item in his home was scrutinized, every corner combed through, in the hope of uncovering more clues. As the detectives delved deeper into Josh's life, they uncovered unsettling details. His behavior in the weeks preceding Mindy's disappearance raised red flags. Neighbors recounted odd occurrences and a noticeable change in his demeanor. The pieces of the puzzle were fitting together, painting a sinister portrait of a man who had managed to stay under the radar. Meanwhile, the Anchorage community, once a peaceful haven, grappled with the unsettling reality of the case. The story of Mindy's disappearance and the emerging details about Josh Wayne dominated conversations, evoking a mix of fear, anger, and sorrow. The detectives, determined to solve the case, conducted a second, more thorough search of the areas Josh frequented. They hoped to find Mindy or any sign of what might have happened to her. The vast Alaskan wilderness, however, offered no easy answers, its secrets well guarded. As the investigation continued, the police pieced together a timeline of Josh's movements around the time of Mindy's disappearance. They learned about his solitary nature, his financial struggles, and his occasional odd jobs. But it was his proximity to Mindy and the evidence in her car that kept the spotlight firmly on him. The forensic evidence from Mindy's car had changed the nature of the search. What was once a mission to find a missing person was now a grim hunt for answers in a potential crime of a heinous nature. The question was no longer just where Mindy was, but what had happened to her. The community held vigils, praying for Mindy's safe return. Her colleagues at the hospital spoke of her dedication and kindness, their words a testament to the impact she had on those around her. The city of Anchorage, united in hope and grief, waited for the police to unravel the mystery. As winter's chill began to set in, the case of Mindy Schloss transformed from a local mystery into a dark tale that echoed through the corridors of Anchorage's homes and hearts. The revelation of Josh Wayne's involvement was a piece of the puzzle no one wanted to believe, yet it was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. As the Alaskan winter approached, casting long shadows over Anchorage, the investigation into Mindy Schloss's disappearance entered its most critical phase. The evidence linking Josh Wayne to Mindy's car had transformed him from a suspect to the primary focus of the police inquiry. The detectives, Armed with this new evidence, intensified their efforts. They retraced Josh's steps, delving into his interactions and movements in the days leading up to and following Mindy's disappearance. Each piece of information added to the growing narrative of a premeditated act. The community, once a haven of tranquility, now found itself at the epicenter of a disturbing investigation. The residents of Anchorage grappled with the reality that such a heinous act could occur in their midst. Mindy, a beloved figure dedicated to helping others, had become a symbol of innocence lost. Amid the ongoing investigation, a significant development unfolded. The police received an anonymous tip leading them to a remote area known for its rugged terrain. The tipster, claiming to have seen something suspicious in the days following Mindy's disappearance, provided a possible location where evidence or even Mindy herself might be found. The police, along with search and rescue teams, descended upon the area. The search was exhaustive, with teams combing through the dense Alaskan wilderness, facing the challenges of the harsh and unforgiving environment. Every available resource was deployed in the hope of uncovering a clue to Mindy's whereabouts. Back in Anchorage, the police continued their investigation into Josh's life. They uncovered a pattern of behavior that raised serious concerns. His interactions with Mindy, although limited, appeared to have a troubling undercurrent. Friends and neighbors provided accounts of Josh's erratic behavior, further solidifying his connection to the case. The evidence, both circumstantial and forensic, was mounting. The police, however, needed conclusive proof to link Josh to any potential harm that had come to Mindy. They revisited the ATM footage, the car, and Josh's residence, looking for the definitive piece of evidence that would allow them to bring him to justice. As the days passed, the urgency of the investigation grew. The community rallied around Mindy's family and friends, offering support and assistance. Candlelight vigils were held, and Mindy's story continued to dominate the local news. The city of Anchorage, united in its desire for answers, awaited a resolution to the mystery that had taken one of their own. The police, determined to solve the case and bring closure to Mindy's loved ones, worked tirelessly. They reviewed hours of surveillance footage, conducted numerous interviews, and followed up on every lead. The case of Mindy Schloss had become a mission for them, a quest for truth in the shadow of tragedy. In the heart of the investigation, the detectives understood that they were not just pursuing a suspect. They were seeking justice for Mindy, a woman who had dedicated her life to helping others. The pursuit of Josh Wayne was more than just a manhunt. It was a moral imperative, a battle against the darkness that had descended upon their community. As the harsh Alaskan winter began to envelop Anchorage, the saga of Mindy Schloss's disappearance reached its denouement. The relentless pursuit of Josh Wayne by the Anchorage police had finally borne fruit. After weeks of meticulous investigation, the police made a harrowing discovery that would bring the case to a close. The tip about the remote area turned out to be the missing piece of the puzzle. In a secluded wooded area, search teams discovered what remained of Mindy Schloss. It was a somber moment, the end of all hope for her safe return. The discovery of her body was not just the conclusion of a search. It was the final chapter in the life of a woman who had dedicated herself to the service of others. The forensic team moved in, working meticulously to gather evidence. The condition of Mindy's remains indicated that she had been a victim of foul play. The community of Anchorage, already reeling from her disappearance, was now faced with the grim reality of her tragic fate. The evidence collected from the scene was analyzed with urgency. The results were damning. DNA and other forensic evidence conclusively linked Josh Wayne to Mindy's demise. This irrefutable connection was the key that unlocked the case, turning suspicion into certainty. Josh Wayne was apprehended and charged with the murder of Mindy Schloss. The arrest brought a wave of relief mixed with deep sorrow to the community. While it marked the end of a haunting mystery, it also opened a wound of collective grief for a life so brutally cut short. The trial of Josh Wayne was a somber affair. The evidence presented was overwhelming, painting a chilling picture of the events leading to Mindy's death. The prosecution laid out a timeline of Josh's actions, backed by forensic evidence and witness testimonies. As the details of Mindy's final moments were revealed, the courtroom was gripped by a heavy silence. The senseless nature of the crime, the loss of a beloved community member, and the betrayal of trust by one of their own, weighed heavily on everyone present. Josh Wayne was found guilty and sentenced to a lengthy prison term. The verdict, though expected, did little to ease the pain of those who knew and loved Mindy. For them, the trial was not just about securing a conviction. It was about seeking justice for a kind soul whose life was taken too soon. In the wake of the trial, the city of Anchorage sought to heal. Memorials were held in Mindy's honor, celebrating her life and legacy. She was remembered not for the tragedy that befell her, but for the compassion and care she had shown to others throughout her life. Mindy's colleagues at the hospital established a scholarship in her name, ensuring that her passion for helping others would live on. The Mindy Schloss Memorial Scholarship would support aspiring medical professionals, a fitting tribute to a woman who had given so much of herself to the field of healthcare. The case of Mindy Schloss, though resolved, left an indelible mark on the community of Anchorage. It was a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the presence of darkness, even in the most unexpected places. Yet, in the face of this darkness, the community found strength in unity, compassion, and the enduring memory of Mindy's spirit. As the long Alaskan winter gave way to the renewal of spring, the city moved forward, carrying the legacy of Mindy Schloss in its collective heart. Her story, a blend of tragedy and hope, became a part of Anchorage's history, a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable loss.